The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
The Passion of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus stood before the governor, Pontius Pilate, who questioned him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You say so." And when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he made no answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many things they are testifying against you?" But he did not answer him one word, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now on the occasion of the feast, the governor was accustomed to release to the crowd one prisoner whom they wished. And at that time they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when they had assembled, Pilate said to them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus called Christ?" For he knew that it was out of envy that they had handed him over. While he was still seated on the bench, his wife sent him a message, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man. I suffered much in a dream today because of him." The chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas, but to destroy Jesus. The governor said to them in reply, "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" They answered, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what shall I do with Jesus, called Christ?" They all said, "Let him be crucified." But he said, "Why? What evil has he done?" They only shouted the louder, "Let him be crucified." When Pilate saw that it was not succeeding at all, but that a riot was breaking out instead, he took water and washed his hands in the sight of the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. Look to it yourselves." And the whole people said in reply, "His blood be upon us and upon our children." Then he released Barabbas to them. But after he had Jesus scourged, he handed him over to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus inside the praetorium and gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped off his clothes and threw a scarlet military cloak about him. Weaving a crown out of thorns, they placed it on his head and a reed in his right hand. And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat upon him and took the reed and kept striking him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the cloak, dressed him in his own clothes, and led him off to crucify him. As they were going out, they met a Cyrenian named Simon. This man they pressed into service to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they gave Jesus wine to drink mixed with gall. But when he had tasted it, he refused to drink. After they had crucified him, they divided his garments by casting lots. Then they sat down and kept watch over him there. And they placed over his head the written charge against him, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 revolutionaries were crucified with him, one on his right and the other on his left. Those passing by reviled him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself if you are the Son of God, and come down from the cross." Likewise the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him and said, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. So he is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we will believe in him. He trusted in God. Let him deliver him now if he wants him." For he said, I am the Son of God. The revolutionaries who were crucified with him also kept abusing him in the same way. From noon onward, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Some of the bystanders who heard it said, this one is calling for Elijah. Immediately one of them ran to get a sponge. He soaked it in wine and putting it on a reed, gave it to him to drink. But the rest said, wait, let us see if Elijah comes to save him. But Jesus cried out again in a loud voice and gave up his spirit. We all kneel. Let us all stand. And behold, the veil of the sanctuary was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth quaked, rocks were split, tombs were opened, and the bodies of many saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming forth from their tombs after his resurrection, they entered the holy city and appeared to many. The centurion and the men with him who were keeping watch over Jesus feared greatly when they saw the earthquake and all that was happening, and they said, truly, this was the Son of God. Friends, brothers, and sisters, the Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Our society today is obsessed with a certain upward movement. We are obsessed with becoming great, becoming famous, becoming powerful, becoming wealthy, becoming happy. And the movement is always that of an ascending movement. We go up, but always, or more often than not, we go up at the expense of others. And this is one sad reality in our society. We want to go up, but at the expense of others. We want to be promoted, but at the expense of others. And that is why in the corporate world, people would sow intrigues. Why? Because they want a certain higher position. We want to go up, but oftentimes it is at the expense of others. Jesus has introduced to us on the cross a new paradigm, and it is what you call a descending movement. You want to be great, learn to go down, learn to serve, learn to be humble, learn to be lowly, learn to bow down, learn to bend your knees. You want to go up, learn to empty yourself. You want to be great, learn to empty your ego. And that therefore the cross symbolizes for us God's self-emptying love. God empties himself to the point of giving up everything in life. You know, our human choices in life are actually a metaphor of death. When we were young, we had many choices. We were very careless in our choices. We would eat all kinds of food. We didn't think of sanitation. We didn't think of clean food, good food, nutritious food. Nothing of that sort. But we would just be picking up what is colorful, what is delicious in our eyes. Then we eat everything. We have so many choices. But as we grew older and older, we started making choices. I will not eat this because this is full of sugar. I'm not going to take this because this is full of cholesterol. I'm not going to take this because this is full of sodium. We become health conscious and our choices taper off. Our choices decrease. The older we get, the choices we got are also decreasing. And even in our diet, as we grow older and older, everything will have to be low. Low on sugar, low salt, low cholesterol, everything. That means to say that our choices taper off. Our choices decrease. To the point that towards the end of our life, we will have to choose between two things. To accept Christ or not. To give up my spirit or not. One of the beautiful expressions in the Gospel of Matthew, when he described the death of Jesus, he didn't say he breathed his last. Matthew says he gave up his spirit. He gave up his spirit. Which means to say that our life is a continuum of giving up. It is a continuous process of giving up. We have to give up our time, our talent, our treasure, our expertise, our knowledge. We have to learn how to give up. Because it is in giving up that we become fruitful. Our life, when it is just about filling up, equipping ourselves, nourishing ourselves, taking care of ourselves, would become very self-centered. And because we are self-centered, we are fruitless. Our lives are meaningless. Unless the grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it will bear not any fruit. It will not bear any fruit. But when the grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, then it will bear much fruit. That means to say, we need to go through a process of giving up. In the seminary formation, oftentimes we try to equip our seminarians. Are they ready intellectually? Are they ready psychologically? Are they ready physically? Do they have a body of knowledge that they can share with people? Do they have good spiritual experiences that they can share with people someday when they become priests? We always equip people. And we realize through the years that there is something wrong in the direction of our seminarians. We have not taught them to empty themselves. Instead, we taught them to equip themselves. And therefore, they don't know how to serve. They don't know how to make sacrifices. Because they would always be equipped. They will always be feeling nourished, feeling provided for, and therefore, in the process, we develop in them that sense of entitlement. Our seminarians need to learn how to empty themselves. And so at the end of the school year, the question to be asked is that how much does this seminarian gained in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills. Instead of that, maybe we ask ourselves, how much has this seminarian given up? Has he learned to give up his ego? Has he learned to give up his time? Has he learned to give up his concerns, his ambitions in life? The same thing can be applied to family life. If husbands and wives do not know how to give up their time, their skills, their knowledge, their pride, their ego, their own ambitions, their own plans, then there will be trouble in the family. People need to learn how to give up. And towards the end, you will be asked by the Lord, give up even the most precious possession that you have. And what is your most precious possession? It is your spirit. And so Jesus gave up his spirit. The life of Jesus was always a life of service, a life of giving up. He could have pursued, for example, the best professions during his time. Maybe he could have pursued medicine, engineering, law, or whatever. But he gave up those ambitions. He could have pursued his maybe doctorate in carpentry. But no, he gave up his career path. And so where and when do you find meaning? When you learn how to give of yourself, your time, your heart, your compassion, your understanding. And this is the meaning of the cross. The cross is about giving up. And towards the end, we will have to give up even the most precious possession that we have. We give up our spirit. And when we give up our spirit, it is painful. When we give up our time, it is painful. When we give up something for other people, when we share something with others, that will always involve pain. And therefore, pain is part and parcel of human existence. Suffering forms part of human existence. Physicians, doctors tell us that when a child is born, the child cries. Why does the child cry? According to doctors, the child cries because for the first time, the lungs of the child will expand and the child will have to breathe independently from the breathing or of the breathing of the mother. Now, the child will have to breathe on his or her own. And expanding for the very first time, one's lungs will be very painful. And that is why the child cries. Welcome to the world of suffering. Welcome to the world of pain. And here you have a group of people like millennials. They are filled with so much entitlement that they have to do this and that they have to do that, and after that they will have to be compensated, and all the expectations will have to be met. Sorry, but that is not our world. Our world is not filled with entitlements. Our world is filled with suffering. Then we better learn how to suffer. Children in the countryside, children in poor families know suffering. And because they know suffering very well, they gain wisdom. Their perspectives change because of their suffering. Children in comfortable families, however, do not acquire wisdom. Seldom do they acquire wisdom. Like they are already 38 years old, 43 years old, and still they are playing Mobile Legends. They're still playing computer games, cell phone games. But you're already 43. Why? Because they are not exposed to the world of suffering. But when a person is exposed to the world of suffering, you gain wisdom. And this is the importance of pain, the importance of suffering. One of the mistakes of parents is that they always try to insulate their children from pain, from suffering. And in the process, their children become spoiled brats, their children become demanding, and they feel they are so entitled to the services of their parents, to the hard work of their parents. And then they would say, I didn't decide to be born. You were the one who created me, who made me, and therefore you should serve me. Notice the kind of self-entitlement. Why? Because parents didn't want their children to suffer pain. In the process, their children have not cultivated wisdom. So there is virtue in pain. There is virtue in suffering. It can lead you to wisdom. And secondly, if that suffering, if that pain is embraced with love, then that suffering will become sacred. It will become holy. And that therefore the equation is complete. Love plus suffering equals sacrifice. Love plus suffering equals sacrifice. Love alone without suffering, oh, that is romantic love. An illusion, an illusory love. Suffering alone without love, oh, that is bitterness, that is persecution, that is oppression, that is unjust. But love plus suffering will transform your suffering into sacrifice. And that is why the sacrifices of parents, the suffering that they had to go through out of love for their children, are very sacred, sacred to the Lord. Friends, brothers and sisters, our society does not want suffering, doesn't want pain. That is why we invent pain relievers. We don't want to be inconvenienced at all, and that is why we build convenience stores. Everything should be comfortable. Everything should be painless. And because we do not want to go through pain, we do not acquire wisdom. And we do not deepen or sharpen our love. It is only love that can sanctify your pain. It is only love that can sanctify your suffering. Love plus suffering equals sacrifice. The cross is God's love for us. The cross is God suffering for us. And God suffering for us out of love gives us the dearest sacrifice. It is easy to ask God, where are you in my time of pain? Maybe we need to outgrow that infantile question. Maybe we can ask ourselves, where was I when God suffered for me? Where were you when God cried through the many swollen eyes of children, of women, of malnourished beggars? Where were you when Christ suffered? Instead of asking ourselves, where is God in my time of pain? Maybe we can ask ourselves, where were we in the pains of God, in the moments of pain, when Jesus was crucified, And when Jesus is still crucified today, in the many injustices, in the many forms of slavery and oppression, in the many killings of the innocent, where were we? Could we even have the courage to stand up for Jesus and to make a real sacrifice for the Lord, and to face our pain with so much love in order to make that pain sacred? Friends, brothers and sisters, the cross signifies for us God's self-emptying love. He emptied himself, yes, but the cross also signifies for us how God has transformed human suffering by his love. Love plus suffering equals sacrifice.